Díomh gach daoine agus fáilte go dtí a cuddamh brethamh is Mr. 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳 Flanagan. Hello, everybody. You're very welcome to the Brehon Academy, and I'm Kevin Flanagan. And in tonight's episode, we're going to be talking to Siobhán De Poar. And Siobhán is one of the two people who are responsible for the wildirish.ie website. And on their homepage, it says, 𝘵𝘩𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳, which means awaken your heritage. Wild Irish is a cultural revival project centred on the Irish language. Our mission is the simultaneous reclamation and growth of our native Irish language and Indigenous traditions. We create experiences and events within which people encounter the Irish language in an experiential way. We believe that the language and ancestral knowledge are inextricably linked, and one's revival precipitates the other. Rooted in the reclamation of Irish identity through the safekeeping of Irish language, culture, and ancient practical skills, we curate events, workshops, and retreats to bring people in contact with their heritage. So let's jump straight into the interview and hear what Siobhán De Poar has to say. The first time you came across my radar was about 9 months ago when Inner Harp Productions put out the video on YouTube, The Awakening Soul of Ireland. And I was very impressed by this woman who was able to speak fluently for about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And it wasn't just the Irish language. You were also talking about birthing from home. And after that, your name popped up many times as I was looking for people who would be interested to interview. And so a mutual friend of ours recently suggested that I reach out to you and told me to contact you through your website, which is called wildirish.ie. So for those who don't know you, could you maybe just share a bit of your personal background and your childhood experiences and what first drew you to this mission that you have with the Wild Irish Retreat?
Okay. So I'm a performance poet, a storyteller, a theatre person. I make rituals as well. Ritual theatre, bring those two things together. I'm a celebrant of different rites of passage. I'm an Irish language revivalist. That's the Wild Irish that you referred to. That's an initiative that I founded with my partner, Diarmuid, to basically simply enough to initially it was doing Irish language activities outdoors. And so bringing a spiritual, nature-based context to Irish language learning, because, for all that we saw up until that point, it was all just in the context of school, inside, indoors, so it was just experiential Irish learning and sharing what we had learned, the medicine that we had found in 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘴. We went there, we hadn't met, we went there independently, looking for a sort of, looking for healing, and we found it there. We found it in the Irish language, and in seaweed, and in the landscape, and in a collection to the land. And we found this medicine, and I think it's natural enough that when you find a medicine for yourself, you just want to share it with others. And that's what Wild Irish was. It was just sharing the medicine that we'd found ourselves. A sweat lodge was part of that. Celtic ritual was also part of that. So we were relatively new to all of those things when we founded it in 2018, and definitely had the imposter syndrome. We were interlopers in the 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳 even, but we spent 7 years there in the end, and began our family there and stayed within the movement for that time and stayed working. It's evolved since then what Wild Irish is, as we have. There's more in the landscape now for opportunities for people to learn Irish. For us, it was never really about teaching Irish language classes. It was very much just doing soul nourishing things le Gaeilge. And it added that extra dimension then to the experience. And people were learning, the Irish for like integration and spiritual emergency. These words that you don't, these words that you don't really see in the folklore or on Radio na Gaeltachta, it was beautiful. Yeah, it is beautiful. It's community, it's building, it's growing, and we've come into a new phase of it now with this place. But to give the context, which is what you've asked for, I am a spoken word poet primarily. That's my real. I have many passions, but that really.
You have a gra
yeah. I think maybe that's what I'm best at. And although my opportunities, for that are less frequent than I'd like. But I'm also a mother of 3 small children, and that's the main thing that I am. Actually, I should say that
the most important job in the world.
Most important job in the world, and definitely the most full time of all the things. The thing that takes most of my time.
Mm-hmm.
My background was in journalism. I was a print journalist for years. I graduated from DCU and spent kind of 7 or 8 years in print journalism and traveling at the same time, freelancing, and I went on I went on a spiritual trip then. I had my 𝘰𝘩𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳 and 𝘔𝘢, my revolution of the soul, my awakening, and I left. I still tried to keep a foot in the journalism, but it was a bit hard, when I had so much processing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Saturn return or whatever precipitates your awakening, it's about as severe as your sleep was. For some people it doesn't even register so much. They were like, oh yeah, that happened, I remember I had a tough year, and but for others like myself, where I was so very much in the manifest world, so very kind of divorced, I think, from my soul's path, like almost refusing and rejecting and denying so much of this, choosing journalism over an artistic career was really like, it was a choice. Like I made the choice. I'm like, I don't want to be a creative. I want to be something proper and real, and even though, creativity was very obviously a calling for me. But so yeah, after going on a 3-year trip to India and Nepal and coming home and rediscovering the Celtic tradition, Celtic ritual tradition, a pre-Christian tradition in Ireland, land-based ritual in 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳𝘢, where it's littered with sacred sites. And I transitioned then into a whole new iteration and left journalism behind. But it was journalism actually that brought me into spoken word as well. That story, like I like I said, I was still kind of keeping a foot in the journalism. I think once you're a journalist, you're always a journalist. Like you say, something on the inner harp. It's still in me. My views are very political, and I look at the news and I'm interested in it, and I see it, and I can, and I'd be writing articles in my head, and I'd be kind of going, why is nobody saying that? And why isn't that being investigated? And, somebody should call that guy and call that out. And, but, that's not, my life doesn't allow me to go down that route like now, and the last piece I did was about water fluoridation. And I was making a film with a freelancer, my sister, and we thought we'd make it in Irish, and it was because she was going to submit it as well for an Irish language diploma that she was doing. So we said we'd do it in Irish and submit it to 𝘵𝘰. And the response that we got after all this work was tá sé ro conspóideach doing.
Too conspiratorial.
Yeah, well, too controversial. Not even
Okay, yeah.
controversial. So
Yeah.
it was like, but I mean, it's such an answer, it's too controversial for us. But that is a normal answer for an Irish media outlet. That's too controversial. Like, what the places what's your function at all, But DG Carr very much kind of stays within that safe remit of cultural stuff, and but I mean, if you're a media outlet, your function really is to inform the public of things that are important for the public to know, and it was and then there was the Examiner published a couple of articles, but really, for the scale of what for the scale of what you're saying, that there's a neurotoxin in our water, and it's essentially, I mean, the cancer, asthma, renal failure, early menstruation in young girls, just this litany of things that it does to the endocrine, because it's an endocrine disruptor.
I remember like years ago, this was before I was doing Brehon Academy, you had another website called 𝘰𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳, and it was more kind of dealing with the issues of the day, such as fluoride is one of the issues that we dealt with, and also like the banking system and the legal system and all of those very controversial topics. But I remember we ran a campaign called Get the F Out, and we were working with his name was Walter. His name is Walter. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I know Walter, yeah. Up in Northern Ireland.
Exactly. So we were working with him. What's his surname? You don't know, you don't remember his surname. So we were working very closely with him, and he successfully got the fluoride out of the water in Northern Ireland. And this was where, I'm sure you're familiar with Aisling Fitzgibbon, the girl against fluoride. So we were like, there was a lot of people who were concerned about fluoride back then, and we were trying our best, to get it out of the water, but it's still there. So yeah.
And Walter, even after, they put it back in Northern Ireland. You heard that?
Did they? No, I didn't hear
they just put it back in without saying anything to anybody. That emerged. I mean, it would have been the same time then that I was working on it as you were on it, because I was Aisling Fitzgibbon and Martha was alive, and they were the people that I spoke to, and they were actually, they were talking about Walter. I forget Walter's name. Anyway, but and it really looked like, all the county councils are mounting opposition, and then nothing happened, and I decided to write a poem, a rap. Aisling was bringing over Paul Connacht, who wrote the Fluoride Deception, and Irene, my sister, she was administering the
I know his surname. It's Walter Graham.
Walter Graham, good man, good man. And good man, Walter Graham. And Irene Tanner, she was running Galway against fluoride, and she was hosting Paul Connacht over in the Connacht, and I wrote a poem for it. And this was my first, I mean, it wasn't my first ever poem. My first ever poem was my mother's eulogy, but I'll get back to that. So I'll read it for you now. And this is kind of...
The floor is yours.
Okay. It's been a while. Did you trust what they said? Did you follow where they led? To the castle in the clouds of the smiley, happy crowds with shiny white teeth from the fluoride in the bleach, the American standard we were all trying to reach. Have you been taken for a ride? Have you been taking fluoride? From the dentist's hand to your pineal gland, are conformists being groomed from a fetus in the womb? Are you weak without explaining? Can you drink without complaining? Does your energy falter from a thyroid disorder? Are your bones a tad brittle, joints cracking just a little, and your teeth a bit mottled? Were you fed on a bottle? because they published a report that said babies would react. Then they forced them to retract, but the babies still react. It lowers the IQ, our special Irish brew. There's more than 300 studies, but still they say, who knew? It's a listed neurotoxin. Let's focus on the schools. And now the attention span decreases and the asthma rate increases. It's a pro-inflammatory decay eater, but wait, the story's getting deeper. It burns a hole and leaves a lump, and the pharmacy takes a chunk out of science and compliance to pacify defiance from Auschwitz to Ipswich without a hitch, just one glitch. The cattle down in Askeaton are aborting without reason. Bhí canóf a curtha as a rucht, is an tionscrif a bhí an lucht. A chána der a rólas éigen, agus fós lenin an forréigen. Medicated and sedated, the constitution underrated, and the studies were amended since the industry befriended. Policy is king and science is a slave. So says the professor is how our government is made, lacking in integrity, applauding in a witless glee, the greatest health measure of our times. Does that believe his lines? If we admit we got it wrong, our credibility is gone. We'll just keep passing the buck until this story comes unstuck. Who cares about caries when the cancer rate so varies between the north and the south, and the only difference is in our mouth, a pea-sized amount, an optimum level, just opt not to meddle. On principle, on precaution, why risk something so awful? So for 50 and more years, and no more Gladys, the dear old dear, to protect our bodily integrity, sipping countless cups of tea on artificial hips. And still we sips. They put it in. We took it out. They called us grim. We called them out. 14 councils and counting. Christ, lads, the pressure's mounting. There was a bill in the wall, in the doll, and their backs were to the wall. I'm telling you, lads, it's on the brink. It's going to fall. But the stiff held firm. And the hopeful learned just how blind is a concrete mind. The opposition was smeared, and the young suits were reared, and the other crowd that had shouted loud, but once in power, they too were cowed, and the people still believed, too big a jump to perceive. Sure, who would so deceive? Decency would grieve. And the man abandoned, he was abandoned. The girl in Tralee, she was worn down by the melee, and the people at large, they found it all just too hard. And the lights went dim, and so did the wind. But the word got around that there's fluoride in the water, and it could be killing our daughters. Do you think I'm overblowing? Have you watched a fetus growing? Because there's one in my womb. That's right. And she'll be born all too soon to a country that has laced its water our disgrace, that flies in the face of scientific consensus, a praxis, that seems to target the defenseless. And here's a question. If it is true decay, what's it doing to your soft organs? So turn off the tap, give every shyster the sack, heed my heartfelt rap, let's take our water back. Because it's too precious for concessions, too serious for mess, and I'm going to pick a fight for the water and for what's right.
Sorry to interrupt the video, folks. I do hope you're enjoying it. And if you are, use this opportunity to please tickle the like button and hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And if you do want to be notified for when future videos are uploaded, make sure you hit the bell notification as well. And just to use this opportunity to remind you to check out the brehinacademy.org. That's where you're going to find articles on all of the topics that we talk about on this channel. You're also going to find information about my online courses. We have 3 of them: Early Irish Culture and Society, Irish Mythology, and the Brehon laws of early Ireland. We also have an online store over there, so if you want to support me that way, you can buy a couple of t-shirts or postcards or bookmarks. And if you want to become a member, it's completely free to become a member of my website, and that will give you access to the members library, which has over 130 downloadable resources, and that's growing all the time. If you want to support me financially on a monthly basis, consider becoming a member of my YouTube channel. Membership starts from as little as $2 per month, and that will give you access to exclusive videos and other goodies and things like that. Now, we're also on social media as well, so we have a presence on Facebook, we have a presence on X, we also have a Telegram channel, and we have a TikTok channel as well. And my New Year's resolution is to start posting more on TikTok as well. Now, with all of that being said, sorry for the interruption, and let's jump back into the interview.
Jesus, I haven't read that in a yonk. And it's there's a lot. I'd edit it now if I'd tighten that one up.
Don't be so hard on yourself. No, it's like I was smiling throughout that, even though it's not a humorous topic, but I was smiling because you were hitting all of the key points.
I know, it must be brilliant for you to hear that. Like, if you were in the campaign, you must be loving that point. Because there's so many references actually that I don't even explain, like the man in Bandon and the girls in Tralee. Like, you know who those people are. Like,
yeah, it was fantastic.
Does it bring it all back, Kevin?
It is bringing it all back, and it's making me feel like we need to be doing something more about it. Like,
get back on that one. Don't worry.
Or make a note of that, like, to get back on that.
Yeah, and I just realized that I was pregnant when I said it, and I wrote it.
Yeah. Well, I got that from the last verse.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten that
couple of lines.
Yeah, because there's one in my womb, and she'll be born. It wasn't a she, actually. It was a he in the end. So can be the teacher.
So that's the word that you could change. Like, he'll be born soon.
I've changed it since, because there's one in wombs or something. I don't know. I had to change it, of course, because it wasn't always true. But I posted up that poem, and Aisling posted it, and it went far. Like, it went further than any articles, and I got a lot of feedback from it. And
wow.
I just I realized, this is it. I can be a creative and still do my
active. Mm-hmm. Make a difference. Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. I'll do poetry, like activism, So I didn't go into poetry for like for romantic reasons, like a lot of people do. I went in just to like
to make a voice.
It was like my tool to hammer use your voice. The message home, like,
that was fantastic. And it's just kind of annoying me that it's still in the water. But shall we move on?
Yeah. Give us one of them 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘢.
One of those questions. Okay, so how have your upbringing and life experiences, such as living in West Kerry or Kilkenny, shaped your identity as a contemporary bard and influenced your artistic practice? And when I say contemporary bard, I mean, like, just based on the poem that you've just said, because the bards were not all about making nice poems. I consider the bards to be kind of the mainstream media of the past, because if they made a satire against somebody, that would travel far and wide, So how has your past experience influenced your current outlook?
I grew up in a very religious setting. My parents were very religious, and that gave me, aside from what people would normally think of that being a suffocating environment, it actually gave me just an acceptance of the spiritual dimension in life. I never questioned that it wasn't there. Like, I just, of course, Holy Mary and Jesus are helping me. Like, I mean,
aren't
they helping everyone? And and I knew how to pray, and I knew how to use higher forces, like, and not use higher forces, but ask them for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I traveled on my own around the world, like, and in very dodgy situations, like, and I just prayed, and when I needed to, and that, I think, for me, with the poetry as well, there was that initial reason of being an advocate and calling out things. But it kind of evolved then into the more shamanic function, the spiritual function of the bard, which is, to hold ritual and to articulate the rights, articulate the story of our society, and say, oh, look, this is happening, but also to in a context, in a spiritual context. So that certainly, my upbringing certainly has informed that. And 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳, that place, I mean, that gave me the Irish, so it's kind of like I went there for the Irish. It's like it had something for me, and I always felt like I never felt like I'd stayed there, even though it was beautiful, and and Diarmuid was there, and we started our family there, but we just never felt like we would stay there. It was just like, no, we came here to get this, now let's go, like, and if it wasn't for lockdown, we probably would have left sooner, like, because it's out in the fringe as well, like, you're on the fringe of the country, like, and that
sometimes that can be better, though.
It's great. It depends where you're at in life. Like, where we were at, it was exactly where we needed to go. Like, I needed to heal, like, we needed to reorientate and come into some sort of notion of who the blazes we were. And but once the mission kind of clarified, and once our purpose clarified, it was like, no, this, what our work is for, it's better to be Laura Nainich for us, to be in our community. Our community is national, it wasn't, the local community wasn't it, like, and it's good to be very pragmatic about things too. Like, when you're 3 hours from anything, like, and 6 hours from the capital, that's really, there's only so much you can do, because you have to leave your children for 2 days if you want to go up to the city. And now we're in Kilkenny, and it's an hour and a half away, and that it's a game changer. Like, it's been a game changer for us coming here, and creating, if you want to create community too, like, we want to create a national community, like, people need to be able to come to you, like, and that's how so we have a space where people can come, like, it's so central, like, whereas in West Kerry, it's a retreat spot. It's where people retreat to, where they go to heal. And that's why we went there, and that's why people go there. But now it's like, here, what we're building here is something different. It's not a place to escape to. Those things certainly. And you talk about the function of the bard, writing satire. Like, there's also spells in that, like spells. I realized who controls the narrative, like, who we know now in this consciousness game that we're in, that the stories that we're putting out are bouncing back, and where we put our energy, matter coalesces, and our attention is gold. It's, our attention is the laser, like, that can manifest a reality. And so if we, telling alternative stories now is important, not just reporting. So I've moved on from not just reporting and calling out the darkness, like, that function is there, but it's somebody else's function right now, and I'm grateful for all those people who do. You see, I think so much is about finding what your role is. It's some people say, why aren't they talking about that? And why isn't everybody doing this? And it's like, well, it's not everybody's role. Like, your role is your role. Why doesn't everyone have a podcast about Brehon Academy? It's, you find your role, and it suits what your skills are, and it evolves as well. And I think my role has evolved more into, yes, like this is what it has evolved more into. But yeah, telling a new story rather than
Yes.
shining a light in the old one.
And building a better future through the words that we speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's all well and good to focus on the problems, but a lot of people are already aware of the problems and they're convinced of the problems and they don't really want to hear more about the problems, but they are more interested in building a better future, and that starts with the storytelling and the shaman or the bard.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see the language as a tool for reclaiming the pre-colonial Irish traditions and mythologies?
Well, it's actually because I often say the Irish language is pre-colonial. So, I mean, the whole history of the colonization of Ireland, and the colonization of our consciousness happened in the English language.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're carrying a colonized mindset, and the kind of it's joked about, and this turlock tugging or furlock tugging, the kind of yes or no sir, like, and we're also sorry, like,
we say sorry, like somebody bumps into us on the street and we apologize to them, but they're the one who bumped into us.
That's right. But that's the colonial legacy.
Yeah.
Like,
I was talking to a friend about this the other day because he has written an article called what's it called? The peasant mindset or something like that. And he is making these sort of correlations between, like, especially the Irish people and how they're very deferential to authority. And I said to him, and maybe you've heard this as well, I'm sure you've been told by your mother or your father, don't be bold. And when you hear that word, when you hear that phrase, don't be bold, Irish people have a tendency to see the word bold as meaning naughty, right? Don't be bold. But if I said, like, the hero slew the dragon, the bold hero slew the dragon, it's more about bravery. It's more about ostentatiousness. And it comes from the Irish, ná bí dána, right? Which is, don't be poetic, because Irish, Don is the Irish for poem. And so it was more like, if you go out and you draw attention to yourself by being too Donna, too bold with your words, you are very likely going to be noticed by the authorities and very possibly be killed. So it was more of a protection thing to say, you're leaving the house and your parents say, no, be Donna, don't be bold.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And that's in us. That's very much part of our national conditioning and our national psyche.
Yeah.
And we're riddled with that kind of conditioning, like, and the trauma, because it's survival stuff. I mean, half of the country was wiped out, like,
and several times, because there were also a third of the population was wiped out when Cromwell was here in the 17th century. And and that was before the famine, and that was another chunk of people were wiped out and emigrated. So we have a lot of hardship on this island, and when you hear the sad music, it might be apocryphal tale, but when I heard a story that when Daniel O'Connell was over in England, and one of the lords of the house said to him, why is your music so sad? Why is it so depressing? And Daniel O'Connell replied, it says, well, if your people were not so harsh, maybe we would have nicer music. And it just kind of speaks to the soul of Ireland, that, like, yes, we can be very joyful and very playful, but we also have this emotional scars. Like, I was talking to somebody recently about how at one point, not that long ago, before Cromwell, like, Ireland was covered by about 80% forests. And we've never got over that scar either, That was our habitat, that was our home. So there's a lot of sadness there, for sure. And I decided to start learning Irish because I had a real pain in my heart. Tá pain in my _𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳, mar níl mé an _𝘔𝘢𝘳 and 𝘔𝘢𝘢𝘳. Because I realized that, we can't even think in our own language, most Irish people, and how cruel must the beaten be, that they beat the actual language out of your mind itself, because a lot of other places have been colonized, but they have retained their language, and it just makes me really aware of how cruel it must have been. Um, so this kind of speaks to the question again, like how do you see Irish as a language or as a tool for reclaiming this connection to our heritage?
Well, I mean, in this journey of self-development that we're in, it's about deconditioning our mind so that we can come back into some self-empowerment. And this conditioning goes very deep, and it can take many years. So I feel that Irish can offer us a shortcut as well. In speaking, it's a consciousness. The
Yes.
language is sentient, so there's a consciousness there.
Yes.
And it is the collective consciousness of all the people that spoke it, so of our ancestors. And it came from a time pre-industrialization, so before this ubiquitous attitude of, the world being a machine that we can extract from. It comes from a time when our ancestors lived in relationship with the land, in proper, correct, right relationship, in sustainable relationship. So it's an ecologically sound consciousness, the Irish language.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talk now of how do we get people to care about the environment, and we're on a fast track to hell, and yet we can't seem to change our behaviors. And, in English, there's a consciousness there of, not Old English, of course, that was a language as pure as any, but, the English language that is used now by the system of domination and control, that is animals, they're its.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at it. In nature is an it. It's dehumanized, it's desentientized nature into its, in as Gaeilge, it's she, there's, and in most languages as well, there's gender there, so that even when you're referring to a noun as she, straight away, she has a personality, she has feelings, she has emotions, on a very base level, and there are many examples. And we're there's a 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳 in a philosophy, 𝘵𝘰𝘳 and 𝘔𝘰𝘳, as Gaeilge you say, 𝘔𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳 and 𝘔𝘰𝘳. Like in Irish you say, I'm doing my job. I'm doing my job.
But it's like I'm doing my share, right?
Yeah, I'm doing my share, and it's I'm doing my part, and everything's just and I'm taking 𝘔𝘰𝘳𝘢 and 𝘔𝘰𝘳, or even I'm teaching Irish to the kids and inside in the local Steiner school, and it's like they're like, how do you say you own something? And in Irish you say tá sé lom, it's lomsa it's lomsa, so it's with me.
It's with me, yeah.
There's no possession even, so that consumer is
I love
just with me.
I love like the code, because I've only started to learn Irish properly in the last couple of years, right? I obviously learned it in school for 13 years, but we came out not being able to speak it. And so I have a couple of friends in a WhatsApp group, and we're often making these connections because, when you see Irish written down, it doesn't sound like as you speak it, right? And so I want to just float this by you and see what you think. So what's the word for a soul? It's anam, right? And what's the word for a name? Anam. And what's the word for an animals? Animaha. And so I was making this connection that it means anam, it does mean soul, but it means like enlivened, it means like energetic, it means living. And it's very interesting when you start to decode Irish, all of these secret messages that come out that are encoded into the language itself.
Absolutely. And I mean, and it's so rich. It's so rich. You can just we used to do workshops inside in the Wild Irish where literally we'd just open up the folklore at random, pick a focal, and then go to Deneen, like Deneen is the old Irish folklore, you know,
Yeah.
and you'd get like 20 synonyms, you know, it's rich out. And you can just see like, so the things that are kind of a match, what they call a vibrational match, you know, for that
Because
word. Like
the
that's what a synonym
sound,
is,
the
basically.
sound is a vibration, and it's like that's why I'm saying Anum is a soul, but Anum is my name. It's a
Yes.
Quevian
Yeah.
is Anum Dom, but
Yeah.
that's not like saying I am called Kevin or I am Kevin, because I'm not Kevin. I'm a man who has a name called Kevin, and it's on me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Mm.
It's on you. And, you know, Diarmuid God be with you, or
God be
hello.
with you. Yeah.
And hello, like I'd saw that, you know, hello, like, you know,
Yeah.
that's,
Exactly. Yes.
you know,
Yes.
that sort of, and yeah, and goodbye. Like I thought that was always consumer programming. Have a goodbye, you know, and
That's a clever
like,
one. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but in Irish you'd say like, you
Slán,
know,
health.
slaw and health. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just, what are we affirming? Like, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and there's, yeah, there's a, you know, graw and groin. Like there's a fine line between love and hate in Irish. So there's this understanding that there is a fine line, you know, and
Yes.
like in love and hate, there's no vibrational match there. Like, but in graw and groin, the graw is in groin, you know. So it's
Yes.
just like
Yeah.
it's not so terrible then. Like hate isn't the end of the world. It's just like actually it's only one letter away from graw. Like it's a little bit more of an understanding of nuance in that. Like, and there's a lot
Exactly.
of examples like solace and dolus, like hope and despair, and you know, this fine line, like, you know. And I
Yeah.
think that one of the great wisdoms of the ages is that like the shadow is actually just the flip side of the gift, you know. And I think if we had that knowledge like from birth, you know,
Hmm.
then we'd be like, oh, there's the shadow, let's go into that. But we're going full pelt the opposite way because it's so oppositionary, the English language, you know, the
Yeah.
opposite is the
Hmm.
opposite, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of like when you interpret the mythologies, there's a lot of those hidden messages that come out of the mythologies because they're not just about the hero, they're about the hero who conquers the dragon. And you know, this concept called the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell popularized. And it's more about the journey of the rite of passage, you know, into adulthood, the call to adventure, the refusal to answer the call, the crossing of the threshold, the meeting of allies and enemies along the way, the going into the cave to fight the dragon and get the treasure after you slay the dragon. And there's often a case, an element of this hero's journey where all hope is lost. So the hero seems to be dead, but he's resurrected again at the last moment, you know? And I'm thinking of Harry Potter when he's fighting Voldemort at the end in the last film. You think he's dead, but he's not dead. Same with Frodo when he's in the he gets tied up in a web by the spider. You think he's dead, but he's not dead. He comes back, and then you have the return to the Shire. So you have the return to the ordinary world, the place of starting. And it's not the Shire that's changed. It's not the under the stairs that's changed. It's the individual that's changed. So that's why I believe mythology has been timeless for thousands of years. We've been telling the same stories because they're not actually about the characters. They're about the journey and the psychological transformation that takes place.
Mhm. Mhm. Of course, yes, absolutely. And I think we're starting to understand that now about our mythologies and not reading them as children's books, but rather as, yeah, psychological maps for what we're
Yeah.
going through. You know, it's universal themes, like, and discovering your own Moore scale is gorgeous. Like, you know, it's we each of us have our own mythology, and we each of us have these archetypes within us, you know. And if we meditate and contemplate on those archetypes, we we activate those attributes within ourselves, you know. And this is I mean, in yoga, that's where bhakti yoga and devotion comes in. You know, you're
Yeah.
not just sitting there praying to some empty effigy. You 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 know, there's this meditation where you see, if you contemplate your Guruji for long enough, then a process happens in meditation where you merge with the Guruji, you know, And that's what this is. That's what all this unearthing of mythology is. It's like we're unearthing our own personal mythologies, and that's really as old stories. And I mean, I believe that they were real people as well, you know, who, yeah, lived very big lives, like, you know. But really, the value is not in that. The value is what of you is in that person, and what of you wants to come out and express itself in service to the world. And it's really, really useful, because we identify ourselves as something so very low. And if we can even have moments like that in meditation where we fully identify with the hero or the heroine, then that will turn some cellular memory on. You know, that's epigenetics, isn't it?
It is.
Activating the cellular memory of your own, of heroism, like, and
Yeah.
you'll take that back with you when you come back down to a lower level of consciousness, and your baseline
Yeah.
will be that little bit higher.
And you can, like, epigenetics are always at play. And so if you're not conscious of epigenetics, you might fall victim to the poor me mentality. Oh, look at all of our history, look at our past. But by having a conscious mind and engaging in the storytelling, you have the power to transmute that epigenetics and ask the epigenetic process to focus on the positive things, focus on the hero's journey, for example. So could you tell me a little bit more about 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘢𝘳?
𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘢𝘳. Yeah, very good. 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘢 means coming back from the West, but it's also how you say resilience in Irish. So it's very much our hero's journey. Diarmuid and I, who, you know, left and went and fought our demons in the caves of West Kerry, and fought each other. But thankfully we've called a truce, and then came back home. And, you know, really we stayed out there, like we stayed away from family. I'm originally from Waterford, and Diarmuid's originally from Wexford, and our home is exactly 1 hour from both of our original home places. So we're right in the middle.
Keep going. I just had to change the battery in my camera.
Oh yeah. So this is coming back here 2 years ago. Is it 2 years now? Represented our homecoming, coming back to the end of the hero's journey, like coming back to the home place,
back to the Shire,
giving, having gone into the shadow in India. And Diarmuid did his travels as well. You know, I think you have to go away. There is something about going away too. And of course there's something about coming back, because both things have to happen, you know. So, and since coming here, like since moving out of West Kerry and coming here, an awful lot more has come for us, you know. The house came, just a lot of opportunity. So it really, it's like saying yes. This was, you know, coming back to the home turf was the right call, like, you know, and bringing, and that was kind of always it too, to go to the Gaeilge, to get the Gaeilge, to become 𝘰𝘢𝘀. Like, we weren't 𝘰𝘢𝘀 when we went there. So, you know, to become 𝘰𝘢𝘀 out there, and then to bring it back like this 𝘰𝘢𝘢, like, you know. And it's funny, like, and
well, that's the treasure, isn't it? That's the prize, is having the fluency.
Yeah.
And you're coming back to share that fluency with the other people. You mentioned earlier about rites of passage, and that you design rites of passage, and it's very kind of syncs up to what we're talking about right now, because you're talking about the adventure that you and Diarmuid went on. But I think a lot of society's problems, especially in the Western world, stem from the fact that there is no societal rite of passage from teenage adolescence into adulthood. And that, for that reason, we tend to find our own hero's journey. We tend to make our own initiation. And it's around early 20s when people will, you know, if they don't get on the right path, they will turn to drugs, they will become adrenaline junkies, they will, like, you know, dabble with crime, I suppose. But there's another path there. I've also been to India. I went to India when I was around 20 or 21. And I went by myself. And for me, that was amazing, because I'm no longer in this, I'm a son, or I'm a boyfriend, or I'm a classmate. I was just me, you know? And so what I'm trying to get to here is, could you describe the process? Like if if I came to you and said, I want to write a passage, I'm not feeling so good, I don't know my way in life, how would you approach that? And would you include the Irish language and mythologies as well?
Well, the Irish language is the language of ritual, you know. I mean, I feel like it is, yeah, it's like Sanskrit out in India. Everyone's speaking Hindi, but they don't pray. They pray in Sanskrit. All the prayers are in Sanskrit. You know,
Mm.
it's the old language, it's the original language. And that's the language our ancestors spoke. So if you're going to commune with them, I suppose you might as well speak the right language. But there's so I would always speak in Irish, and it's bilingual for ritual. That just happens naturally. For different rites of passage, it's for example, the most recent one I did was a woman was about to give birth, you know. So she was having a blessing for the incoming soul. And she'd gathered a circle of women together. And it's quite spontaneous as well, you know. We said sé de bheatha séire atá lán de grásta, so we put her name there. Ispannahu with the Vana, agus Ispannaha Torah de Vrina. You know, so blessed is the fruit of your womb. And we all said that. We all know it, you know. This is a prayer we all know.
Yeah.
And I mean, praying collectively, like, there's not many prayers we all know. And the sé de bheatha is a gorgeous one. It's a blessing on the mother.
Mm.
And then we put the circles of protection around her. 5 circles of protection. That was an old rite that we used to do. And it was actually Sarah herself that had dug that one out. She is a great old researcher, Sarah Gaeilge. Reclaiming Clan is her initiative. And we had the 5 circles of protection that used to be placed around the pregnant mother. And they were kind of against fire and flood and against various, I can't remember them now, but how we did it then in the moment, I said, I know there was one woman there, and I asked her, I said, give us sound, sound us, lead us in a sounding. So we made walls of sound, and we did the ah, and we did an oh and an ooh, and we came in along that way. And so we made a wall of sound for each
Ring.
for each ring, each circle.
Yeah.
And she could feel it coming in around her. So she was in the middle of us, and we made this wall of sound. And we did a round and then we started to, she lay down. One of the women suggested it. She lay down, and we gave her like a lomi massage, like a Hawaiian massage, where we all rubbed her, and somebody took her hands and somebody took her head, and she was just caressed and loved, like, by the circle of women. That was gorgeous. And then we did a releasing circle where we all went around and said the things that we wanted to forgive, who we wanted to forgive. That just came quite spontaneously, actually, because and some of us cried, you know, and I think that was it. And that's one rite of passage. You know, it was like you're about to give birth to another, and this is the preparation of it. And I think this is how we rediscover our rites. It's a very intuitive method. Of course, there was also research involved, and I think the melding of those two is very good. Like, Sarah had researched the original birthing rights and protection rights, actually for an event that we did here. So we had that information, and Sarah and I had also pilgrimaged together and said the rosary, and so I taught her in Irish how to say it, and so like I knew that, and we knew each other, we knew what people had, we were familiar, and there's a, you know, you sit down and you meditate on it, like for Ishna's Holy Communion, my son's Holy Communion, and just sitting down and it's like, okay, what does this passage mean? And I got one of the Steiner books about the transition between 7 to 9, and what's actually, because Rudolf Steiner was a full clairvoyant, so he could see what the etheric body is doing, and it's actually fully, it's like, it's coming earthbound for the first time when they're 7. So that's actually what that rite passage is like. They're now fully here. Prior to that, they still have one foot in the heavens, like, and and so he's and there's even a change in their heart rate, like they're how their heart beats changes for a few months while they're undergoing this transition, like, and they go through a kind of a selfish period that correlates to the change in heartbeat. It goes from kind of a trinary to a binary heartbeat. It's very interesting, and so for this, and the receiving of the first Holy Communion, what came through for this was that this is they are going from Heavenly Father to Earthly Mother, and sacrament is the body of the mother. It's the body of the mother. And at that time, because we did it in May, Hawthorne was the queen of the hour, and so we went through like a mission through the woods, and we had to get to the other side, like, and their parents dropped them with me, and we went. And I was like, and we have to find our way to the other side. And when we got to the other side, there was a bowl, and they'd had a fire lit, and all the children had to jump the fire. We had to do something. There has to be the challenge had to be, and it was safe, like, but it was still like a little bit, there was anticipation and nervousness, but it was just this, the understanding that this Eucharist, this Holy Communion that all the children are getting, like, this is my body, like, that this is the body of the earth. Like, now you belong to her. Now you're here. You're earth. You belong to earth now. You don't belong to heaven anymore. So take this body of her, like, and know that, like, as you take it. So this is 2 examples.
So you just reminded me of something. I think it was in The Hero with 1,000 Faces, which is the book by Joseph Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about rite of passage, and he talks about a tribe in Africa. And he says that when young boys are coming of age, not his father, but the men of the village, okay, they will take the young boy away, and all of the women start mourning as if it's a death. Mm-hmm. So they start screaming, and when I was saying this to the story the other day to someone, I said it's a bit like a keening, but the child isn't dead, he's still alive, but what they're actually mourning is the death of the child, because they take them away into the wilderness and they begin to explain to them the mythologies of the men, okay, the stories for the men. And then when they come back, those young children, those young boys are introduced to their mother again as a man, and the mother pretends that she doesn't recognize him. So it's just this kind of like psychological process of, you're no longer a child, you're now a man. And because I was joking about this, because we don't have that in Ireland, right? And it would probably be a good thing if we did have that in Ireland, because, you have this like Irish mammy thing, and all the young boys love their mammy very much. So it just created this like psychological and ritualistic moment of separation, of transition, and kind of rebirth.
Yeah, Cutting the Cord. I mean, Robert Bly, Iron John. Have you come across that one?
I have come. Maybe it was from that book, because I read that also.
Cutting the Cord with the mother. I mean, this is it, and what I realize as a mother as well. Like, from the minute they're born, they're separating from you, like, and your capacity to leave them go, like, in the beginning when they're young, it's all your capacity to keep them close is the measure of how good you are as a mother, but actually later on your capacity to leave them go is the measure of your how good you are as a mother. It totally flips, like,
I know,
and as an attachment parent, like, where you're kind of almost don't know where the line is, and I think for men in particular, these rites of passage are essential. And Diarmuid, that's Diarmuid's work, working with men in rites of passage, and mine are with women. That's just how it happened. I guess it's natural enough. And the reason, I suppose, that women don't require the same rite of passage is that birth is that rite of passage for us.
Yeah, and they also go through a physical rite of passage before birth because, puberty is a
Yes.
lot more intense for young women than it is for young boys.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I think that movement now, there's a lot of women, a good friend of mine, Leiden, and collective down West Cork, a lot of women helping young girls now make that transition in a very, and if I had that, I think for me, I can, you can look back and you can see these crucial choice moments in your life where you went the wrong way.
Yeah.
If I had mentorship at that point around my body and sexuality, like, it really would have made a huge difference to me, because I think I lost a lot of years in promiscuity and just being with the wrong boyfriend. And it's you think, oh, what does it matter? Like, you have sex, but actually you're fusing your electromagnetic field with theirs,
Yeah.
and you can't tell what are your desires and what are theirs. So it's like it's muddying the waters of an already difficult period. And I really would, I really would counsel young girls to if you could just recognize the preciousness of it instead of the dirtiness, and that's certainly a rite of passage for us to acknowledge. But I think for women who, giving birth is really a very initiatory practice, and it brings us from maiden into mother. Now, it's definitely not like that, it doesn't. I mean, I think it was really my third birth before I felt, okay, now I've arrived. Now I'm a mother,
Yeah.
And that initiatory practice as well is taken from us by a medicalized
Of course, yeah.
hospital,
Yeah.
where you're actually disempowered and infantilized
Yeah.
and bullied. And
Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because I remember you spoke about that in the Awakening the Soul of Ireland Inner Harp presentation. So I wasn't aware that this was a big movement in Ireland, the home birth movement.
It's free birth, because the home birth
free
movement,
birth, that's right, yeah.
And this is it. It's a response to the lack of a home birth service in Ireland.
Yeah.
The home birth service in Ireland has been systematically hollowed out, and it can serve only a tiny number of Irish women, and at least half of Irish women have reported wanting to give birth at home. And I'd say the figure is much higher if there was more up-to-date surveys. So, you have a birthing woman who's in her full health, and there's no birthing centres. We don't have a culture of a proper birthing culture in Ireland anymore, because we had the ban cower, and then we went from that to hospitals. So it's
What's a ban cower? Is it like
a ban cower, 𝘰𝘰𝘢𝘳, the woman who helps the midwife?
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
And so
a helping woman. Yeah, gotcha.
Helping woman,
Yeah.
and every village had a ban cower, but of course they're not registered and licensed and all the rest of it, so that the institutionalization of birth, just like the institutionalization of education and everything else, has been the destruction of it, but it's extremely serious, because birth is the pivotal moment for the soul. Like how, the limbic printing that starts in the first 20 minutes of life, what the child's neural pathways are laid down of how they define love, and their reference point for love, their reference point for the rest of their lives is laid down and is meant to be. Nature has designed it that reference point is their mother's beating heart, which is absolutely flooded with oxytocin, a chemical hormone that makes you feel love, like you want to burst, and that's the environment that the child's neurology is printed with. But if you start to intervene with that doesn't happen. And I think the level of intervention is so systematic and severe now that very few children are getting that moment of limbic printing, of love bonding.
It's a really positive sign that, women are making an intentional choice to have a home birth, or a free birth, as you called it. And also, when you have a child in a hospital, they cut the umbilical cord straight away, and they take the placenta as well. And I've heard that that's not very good for the child, because there's a lot of like nutrients in the placenta, and
A third of the child's blood supply is still in the
Yeah,
cord when at birth. They do. It says when you go in for a scan, it says that we delay cord cutting now. So there is the best practice is recognized. I mean, it's always been known
yeah,
that that's the case. They study midwifery for years, so everyone knows that a third of the blood supply is in the cord. So they're supposed to wait for it to stop pulsing. I mean, that's international best practice. But if the birth is deemed an emergency birth, then all of that goes out the window. And something is considered an emergency birth if the labor has taken too long, according to their measure.
yeah,
So, and they're very quick to call it. And my first birth was called an emergency birth, although it didn't feel like an emergency birth to me. There was no symptoms of emergency. But it just took quite a long time,
yeah,
and that's not allowed. So, this free birthing movement is really it's just what women are left with to birth unassisted, and that was the choice that I made, but that a lot of women don't have a choice, and they have to if they don't want to go into hospital, birth unassisted at home.
yeah,
So because the home birth service isn't available to us, and you're ruled out from having a home birth for very quickly and very easily because there's very strict insurance conditions on it.
yeah.
So I yeah I think more and more women will continue to birth unassisted. Definitely. I know actually that more and more women are doing this, and more and more women in my community. And they're just, I mean, it makes no sense. I don't go to the doctor when I'm sick, I mean, unless I break a bone. Most of us are like that now. Most of the people I know, we make alternative healthcare choices. We use herbs, we use mineral
Yeah.
supplements, we cleanse the body. There's a plethora of health measures that don't harm your health, which is what happens that don't have negative side effects. So once you've stepped out of that pharmaceutical model, like, and recognized it as,
Mm.
sort of a death industry, then you just wouldn't go in there with your babe, like, to give birth. You don't want to go in there to give
Well,
birth.
yeah, that's a
It's
good
like the
point.
last
When
place
when
you
you
want to
say it
go
like
in.
that, it's a good point.
Yeah. And I think more women will just, so, and also what will happen is that there will be a support network. The support network is already growing,
Yeah. Hmm.
so for women to do that, so that it's not that you're alone. You don't have to
Yeah.
be alone. You just have to have somebody with you who isn't licensed.
Thanks for sharing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have mentioned on this call that poetry for you is very healing, and you also use it to heal other people. And I suppose in that sense, you could consider it like story medicine. And so, can you share some examples of how you have used story medicine to articulate unspoken stories or critique modern society?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think as a mother in particular, I think the mother's voice is largely missing from the public sphere, for obvious reasons, because the village is gone, so we're just way too busy, like, to in the in the world of small things, and so when I write, I just write of my experience. I write my story, my, giving birth, or looking into my daughter's eyes. And even when I wrote, like, like, maybe I'd read that one actually. Um, you know, at the COVID time, like, I was bursting, like, with um hmm, I remember that. I was just, I was raging. There was so much to say, like, about what was going on, and then there was so much censorship as well. Um and and I'd just given birth. So for I'd about a year in, I gave birth, a year into the lockdown years. Um so I was really in that, like, as well. I wonder, is this the one? Yeah, and it's that medley of those two things, you know. Did you hear the latest news? They're saying mass to empty pews, and young fella's got a big fine because throwing snowballs is a crime. I can hardly remember the time before this pandemic pantomime took over the screen and made our rich land mean. But now I'm baby gazing while daily raising these prisons to the ground with my unique sound, informed and out loud, opinions rough but rounded, because she knocks my edges off with her tiny fist curling soft, blurs my hard line with the barest half smile. Did you hear? The bomb went off in Beirut. She's so cute. From the warmth of my bedroom, I'm witnessing the dread doom of YouTube and Facebook, where we have our fates put in technology's cold hands. Your DNA strands, predictedly modelled, incessantly coddled, on an automated feed, every conceivable need. I stop to feed, to meet her needs, and this precedes that Beirut grieves. Who is the co-villain? Who is the anti-hero in this matrix of ones and zeros? An epic drama unfolds with damage untold by a corporate media that folks still believe is a reliable source, and you can shout to your horse. Ain't no change in the course of this runaway train of thought. I hear her suckle, and I re-enter the bubble of milk and innocence. I write notes from the bubble of brewing trouble to disturb my domestic bliss. How much have I missed? The animals died in the challenge trials, but they didn't let this fact slow production of the vials. Antibody-dependent enhancement, and I'm not taking the chance meant. You're anti-vax too lax and reckless, all around feckless with your children's wealth and the pharmaceutical health. Your children's health and the pharmaceutical wealth. Merciful Jesus. This is the unedited version. Did you hear? Elon Musk is piloting Starlink from the McGillicuddy Reeks in West Kerry, and you have to wear a mask on Kilrush Ferry. Did you hear? The Dalai Lama is paying the price of Dara Masala, and he offered up his wrist because there's always a twist in this tale of human kindness, which tells of human blindness. And was the monk just talk? Because in the end he balked. Did you hear? So with innocence as my guide and her coups, with innocence at my side and her coups as my guide, I rely on spies to get my message out, cooking the book, playing the algorithm, tagging my slags and boosting my boasts, to extend my reach into the breach of the unholy host, my words pressed to impress the masses that aren't critical. And yes, I tried prime because I got it in half the time. I'll zoom to your aid like a saviour on Luke Crusade to take a virtual stage high on moral outrage of this Amazonian charade. I will ply my trade, getting oogled on Googled and pinned up on Pinterest, making boobs on YouTube. I hear her suckle. And my resolve to contribute buckles under the lightest weight. She sighs, blue eyes lit by blue screen, reflecting the cosmos that she has seen, making all other work feel obscene. I turn back to the screen, and the horrors that flash and the protesters clash. A rocket is fired by the trolls that they hired, and the movement is mired, and the little one is tired. I fawn, she yawns, and the golden age dawns, and just for a moment there is atonement. Ignorance is made innocent in the breeze of her baby scent, for she is heaven sent, and not hell-bent on changing the world, my massive little girl. She has a free pass on the mystery ride, to unravel fast a direct line, to go past all that's past. Without attack, she sees no lack, and she gives a glowing report to the children of karma that couldn't help but harm. A generous mama. And to the heavenly bureaucracy she answered, there is only me. There is only unity. Through joy and pain she cannot feign interest in my struggle. For right and wrong becomes a muddle, and she sees only innocence veiled by ignorance, which was too at one time innocent. In my daughter's eyes, wonder and surprise makes truth of the lies. For all has the same worth in my daughter's eyes. Oh, Jesus, sorry, it was the unedited version again. Oh, I should leave it sit, leave it sit. The inner critic comes saying straight away. But as I was reading it, I was going, oh, fuck, this is the unedited version. But listen.
That's the inner Irish in you.
Oh my God, that's my colonial conditioning there.
Yeah,
now going,
exactly.
I'm sorry for my poem.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. I am not sorry.
Yeah.
But it's this the voice of the mother, I suppose. It's the voice of the mother in all of that. It's like, this is where we're at. Like, it's like I'm looking at everything going on and you're like, but you're just in here,
Yeah.
And my poetry does give a voice to the mother, like, and I have another one that I won't but about mothers of Ireland, and
go on, share it.
Huh?
Go on, share it.
It's maybe I'll give you the summary, the long one. But it's just, I suppose, to the question as well, like, I was also writing about cows lately, and like I think that's part of our job too, to give a voice to the animals, like, or even like I also have a series of poems where I kind of start as an invocation, like 𝘰𝘰𝘢𝘢𝘢, I am Boan, I am the goddess Boan, and I tell her story then, like, but 𝘰𝘰𝘢𝘢𝘢, like, and it's just, it personalizes it, and as you're performing it as well, you can kind of feel her come in, like, and these poems that, I'm reading them now, but they're performance poems. You can see, like, that they're meant to be done with voices and movements, and it's a piece of theatre, like, and with the goddess poems, like with the bandeja, like, that really works well as well, because in the right setting, like I did 𝘰𝘰𝘢𝘢𝘢 with Pia. I don't know if you know her, but she's an exceptional medicine music player, and she was playing in the background, like, and we were in the Chapel of Ease up in Dublin, like, and you could feel the cow in the room. You could feel her, like, So you're giving a voice to the voiceless there too. You're giving a voice to something very powerful. And I think I probably give voice to something powerful more than I give voice to something that's weak, but usually it's both are kind of in there. Usually both's in there, actually. It's kind of that there's always that trajectory, there's always that, because I think that's all stories are that. All stories are, shadow to light, shadow to light, shadow. It's all just the dance, isn't it? Like, and the infinite ways of expressing it, like, with your own creativity.
I teach storytelling. I teach public speaking, and in the storytelling class, I say, like, if there's no conflict, there's no story. So you always have a character. The character wants to achieve something. There's some reason why they can or cannot achieve it, and if they don't have that, it's just it's like lifeless. You need the conflict. You need a bit of the shadow and the light, the dance between the shadow and the light.
Yeah, and there's no shortage of it. No shortage of it. And I think our stories are, you can't move outside the front door. Like, if your eyes are open and you're alert to things, like, there's stories dripping off they're everywhere. Like,
Well, the reality is made of stories. And if you know the stories, if you know the words that make up the stories, you can make a reality whatever you wish. So let's start to bring this into land now. You're working with Diarmuid, your husband, on the Wild Irish Centre, Wild Irish Retreats. Can you talk to us a little bit about the work that you're doing there? What sort of offerings do you have for the public, and how can people get involved if they want to?
Okay, well, we've just bought the place, so it is all very new and very fresh, and it's been raining for 3 months. We're going to get the yurt up next.
But you're in Ireland, what do you expect?
I know, yeah. So you just have to get all your building work done in May. But we have a barn here. We're in South Kilkenny. So we have a barn, and we've been running things out of the barn in the summer months. And even we went and we did an event even in November, but it was getting seriously chilly, and we kind of fixed up the Bohan out there and lit the potbelly stove. But my God, it was still chilly, like, but it was a Keenan circle. It was very authentic, like, and that was the last thing we did here. So the kind of things that we're doing is it's kind of what comes in and who comes in as well, you know. I mean, there's always the Gaeilge, like that Keening Circle was 𝘰𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳, and there's so we were grieving the loss of the Irish language.
Yeah, okay.
The
That's what I
overall,
thought, yeah.
yeah, and previous to that, we had basket. Rosemary came down and she did willow weaving basket 2-day course of how to weave willow, make a beautiful basket. The Diarmuid did deer tanning. That was the first one we did, actually, the deer tanning retreat. That was February last year, and that was actually a retreat. Now we don't have accommodation here, but as it worked out, a lot of those lads had their vans and stuff like that, and it was kind of they were the kind of earthy bunch that didn't mind, you know. But we yeah, camping, like so even it's not the courses that we have run, even the weekend courses of people going away staying somewhere else, you know. I had we had the birthrights day, and that was what I was telling you about earlier about reclaiming our birthrights and the 9 waves blessing. And we translated them to Irish, and each of the women received them. Each of the women who have come received the 9-wave blessing. So this is what every child in Ireland would have been baptized long ago, like in the river. And it was absolutely, beautiful, you know, because a lot of us have been baptized in the Catholic Church. So we did a revocation for that first, you know, this Apostles' Creed, which is kind of locking you into spiritual contracts that, you know, as a baby. And it just never occurred to half of us to revoke that contract. So you make an out loud, like you have to make an out loud declaration. And we did it with Sacred Fire to revoke all the connection with that cult, you know. And then you bring in, then you make the invocation, like, you know, and the 9 blessings and the 9 ways, and for each blessing there's water. And actually, recently did that one for a child as well. So those are kind of a selection of things that have happened this year so far. The next one is a sauna development retreat, but we haven't the date set for that yet. We're kind of, we haven't got our calendar done for the year. There's going to be a 𝘵𝘢𝘢𝘢 Creative Women's Weekend here, where women will learn the rosary in Irish, and so it's, and then we make sacred art as well, either with the beads, you know, the rosary beads were originally made with rosebuds and flowers. So and I have a friend who made a beautiful set with hawthorn berries and ivy, and strung them with ivy, and that's so, you know, imagine the consciousness you're connecting with that rosary, like you're praying with the hawthorn. And Annie Hines, who's now releasing a sung version of the rosary, will be teaching women that. That's the kind of my own work. A lot of what my own calling is at the moment is around that reclamation of our early Celtic Christian. Is that the dog or the baby? I'm doing it on the story. So and then Diarmuid's work, some of that will come here as well. You know, men's groups, Sweat Lodge. We want to try and the developmental retreat, so the retreats where we're working and people are learning the skill, and then we're getting the resource, we're getting the asset. That's a kind of a model that is going to start us off with the retreats, you know. So wildirish.ie is us. We are we're just, how can you get involved? It's like, oh my God, come and weed the garden for us. Like, you know, we're like up the walls, and but like really counting our blessings. And I feel like the vision we put out, because we fundraised for this. So we did a crowdfunding campaign. Like,
I remember that. It was like you had a lot of very good, I wouldn't call them prizes, but offerings.
Yes. And that's those. So all those things are some have happened, and more has to happen. And that was it. So when people donated, in exchange, they got a ticket that could be redeemed at any point, you know, as soon as we put the event up. So we have family days coming up as well. The first one will be on Easter. So it's a kind of it's like a day of celebration for the family,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
with old ritual as well, with land-based ritual. But
Wow.
there's a weaving always with me. There's always a weaving with the Christian lineage as well.
Yeah.
Like that's
Which is important because that was part of our heritage, part of our identity of who we were.
absolutely. And yes, and you know, it's really like the distortion, especially the rosary and these Marian, the devotion to Mary, and you know, the apparitions at the wells and all of that has really nothing to do with the institution. Like it's very much the subversive sort of devotion to the mother goddess, to the land that was always there, and it has just survived through. But it's in Catholicism, but it's survived like hidden in plain view, you know. So when we do our celebrations and our rituals, like that's weaving that in there, you know. And it's I think what we're doing as well here is with these community rituals is creating or articulating a new national tradition as well. Like, you know, we're all trying to find, we lost, you know, the church is gone, but we miss that. We miss mass. Like we miss
have
gathering and collective worship.
a deep need for spiritual meaning.
Yes, and collective worship. Collective worship is
Yeah.
collective prayer. And, you know, you're talking about telling new stories and manifesting new realities. Like that starts with collective prayer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when, you know, while we're celebrating the fall of the church, like we've also lost collective prayer. So we need to grieve that as well and put in an alternative or create an alternative for ourselves, because it's essential to our future, you know?
Yeah. So I'm just keeping an eye on the time here, and I know you have to be somewhere in the next 10 minutes. So is there any question that you would have liked me to have asked you, or anything that you would have liked, anything else you would like to add to this conversation?
I mean, I suppose when we crowdfunded for our house, you know, we found this place and we didn't have money. And I know a lot of people listening to this program would be of the same mindset and in the community that wants to build resilience for what's coming down the track. And we need spaces for that. We need to take ownership of the land again, and we need to, you know, that's how we build a network of alternative spaces. Like, and we can't. There's no resilience alone. I mean, we're blessed here. There's a biodynamic farm 20 minutes away, but 20 minutes is 20 minutes in the car. You know what I mean? Even just yesterday, I was thinking like that. But it's still, it's a cyclable distance. Like, you know, but we have a river, you know, so we have water, and that means we'd probably charge something as well, you know, so we have power, like we have south facing meadow, so that's where we can grow our greens. I think if a piece of land calls to you, I think particularly families who want to root down, I think single people, like right here, we need single people. We need people like yourself, or somebody who's unattached, you know, who hasn't got children, who can come and help us. Like, and like, once we acquire more land, like we could offer that person a space, you know. I think that's, for me, that seems to be the model that would really work well. Like, you know, and I know, like, when you have the children, it's essential to have a place, you know. And I also feel like the children magnetize in the place. Like, we didn't do any house hunting. We didn't search on Daft. You know what I mean? We never did anything like that. We never went to view a place. I mean, we didn't do a 9-to-5 job to get the mortgage, you know, which is what you have to do. Like, we didn't, just our children, like we have 3 children, so that you have the power of 3 as well, like just little vortexes of manifestation, like just got the home that they needed. But when we crowdfunded, we basically, it's like asking, it's just so uncomfortable. You're like asking somebody else to buy you a home, you know. And
that's probably the Irish the Irish thing coming out again.
But I mean, it probably is. It probably is. And I was definitely like, I encountered so many self-worth and self-esteem issues in doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one conversation with this, very successful businessman over in the States, and he was saying abundance is so linked to self-worth. And I was like, Jesus, and lucky, I mean, we have Diarmuid who doesn't have the same issues that I have, um, because I think being famous at a young age, kind of, he worked through a lot of that. So, he was able to, but also for him, there's an issue, like, because he comes from a very conservative background, and all those guys are like a lot of in the GA community, and there'd be a lot of judgment there of somebody who isn't paying their own way, so he had to deal with that, which I didn't. But
Yeah.
really, like, what it was we were just generating energy and energy and energy and energy. So it wasn't like it was 280, was it 260,000 for the house, and we fundraised 50,000. So it was still like nowhere near the amount, but the energy that was generated just made it almost a foregone conclusion that it would come in. So this method of like asking for help and putting things out there and
Yeah.
putting yourself out there and opening yourself up to the
Yeah.
world and to the slings and arrow of outrageous fortune, and putting pictures of yourself and your family all over the place, and your story. And this is, life responds to that kind of
Yeah.
openness. It responds, and it's generous. Like, it's if you treat your brothers and sisters, if you treat the public as brothers and sisters that might help you
Yeah.
out, like, then it responds that way. Like,
And
so
a lot of people like to be able to support projects like this, not just projects about getting back to the land, but a lot of people like to have a way to support things that they love. And this is such a great project, and it's a great vision that you and Dermot have, that, of course, people will want to help, and you create all these different means and channels for them to be able to. It's just energy exchange at the end of the day, and it was. I've seen some of the offerings that you had up there, and they were very attractive, and I love that about the project. So don't be so hard on yourselves.
This is it. I mean, this is it. It was supposed to be reciprocal. It was like, okay, for every donation, you can get something back. Like,
Yeah.
you can come and learn Irish, or you can do something, here. And that was the idea. And I think when so many people didn't have any money to give, but they offered these things. That's where we got all the offerings from people who wanted to donate something, but said,
Exactly.
I'll run a workshop for you. So it was just like, this just happened. We just put up the fundraiser, and then all of a sudden these offers came in. And so then we had all these tickets of things that people could claim for their donation. And it's such a cool model, like, and anyone could do that,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, just put it out there, and like, I want to buy a yurt, I want to buy a field, I want to, I want to make a sustainable, resilient home for myself and my family, like, and just do my thing. Because
Yeah.
that's all we're doing here. It's an Irish language cultural centre, but we're just doing our thing. Me and Diarmuid are doing our thing here, at home with our kids, because we we have to be, where else are we going to put them, like, I mean, yeah. So that's maybe that's something worth adding for people to
Yeah.
just yeah, fan into, and
Yeah.
yeah, be Donna.
Donna, excellent. So Siobhan, I just want to say Mila Weekis, os the East August Bannock the Chunskell, the Chunskell.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for your wisdom and blessings on your project and your future endeavors.
Agus Bannock the earth, Queen. Agus the
Slán.
Savior. Come on.
Slán.
Slán.
Sometimes when you're interviewing a person, an individual, you start to get this feeling of you're in a flow state. And I really felt that during that conversation with Siobhan. I especially love the work that she's doing, because it's like what I'm trying to accomplish with the Brehon Academy, to revive Irish heritage. But Siobhan and Diarmuid are doing it in a very practical way, like a very hands-on way. And I love how much they love the language. Neither of them were Gaeilgeoirs, but they have educated themselves to become Gaeilgeoirs. And before we started hitting record, we exchanged a couple of focal between us. And she asked me, do I feel there's enough resources? I told her I was learning Irish, as Gaeilge. And she said to me, do I feel there's enough resources? And if she had have asked me that when I left school, I would have said, no, there's not enough resources. But in the last couple of years, there's scores and scores of resources now. She mentioned Instagram. I mentioned TikTok. And so there's so many channels out there who are fluent Gaeilgeoirs, and they're happy to share that knowledge with anybody who's curious to know more. I remember a time when I was younger when there was kind of a snobbiness around Irish. Like if you couldn't pronounce the word correctly or you didn't use the proper grammar, you would be mocked, I suppose. And it was kind of like, the way I remember it, it was kind of, if you couldn't speak Irish and you tried and you didn't do it properly, there'd be a little bit of sneeriness going on. But that's not happening anymore, because I'm so happy to see it. It wasn't a government initiative. It was young people who started to think that speaking Irish was cool again. So, a 𝘋𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳, 𝘰𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳. Until next time, 𝘰𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳𝘔𝘢, 𝘰𝘰𝘳𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳, agus slán go fóill.